Food. We all love it, and to some extent, we are all food experts because we eat every day. However, food systems, loosely defined as a web of activities and actors involved in the production, processing, transport, and consumption of food, are about more than what we eat. They connect us to the natural environment and have cultural meanings. They also impact on our health and the economy. Unfortunately, the scientific consensus is that our food system is fundamentally unsustainable and needs to change. But the search for solutions is difficult because of the inherent complexity of the system. In the next few minutes, I'd like to argue that economics, as a science of decision-making under scarcity, has a lot to contribute to the transformation of the food system towards sustainability. But first things first, what are the issues to be addressed? What is broken that needs to be fixed? At the global level, we can say that the food system faces a daunting triple challenge. The first challenge is to provide food and nutrition security, or, in other words, to feed healthily a world population that is expected to increase to 10 billion by 2050, which will require considerably more healthy food to be produced. And this needs to be achieved from an unsatisfactory starting point where, in today's world, almost 700 million individuals are malnourished and roughly the same number of people are obese. The second challenge relates to resource use and environmental sustainability. We know that the current food system has considerable environmental impacts and relies heavily on non-renewable resources, to the point that some even say that we consume mainly fossil food. Hence, the food system accounts globally for a quarter of all climate-warming greenhouse gas emissions, and, closer to home, runoffs from fields are a leading cause of eutrophication of the Baltic Sea. Finally, the third challenge is for the food system to support livelihoods and rural developments. Globally, it is estimated that economic activities linked to food chains provide income to 500 million individuals, often belonging to the most vulnerable groups in society. In Finland, the agricultural sector has experienced a profitability crisis for years. It follows that, in the future, the food system will have to produce significantly more healthy food with limited resources while reducing its impacts on the environment, all in an inclusive and socially acceptable way. This is often described by scientists as a wicked problem, one that has no easy solution because of the complex, dynamic, and largely unpredictable nature of the underlying system, and the fact that there are almost always trade-offs in outcomes. However, reforming the food system by doing more with less in a coordinated way is also something that resonates strongly with economists, as our discipline can be defined at the general level as a study of how society manages its scarce resources. By analyzing the choices that individuals, businesses, and governments make under scarcity, the discipline can help develop ways to incentivize socially optimal behaviors around healthy consumption and the sustainable production of food. I will now illustrate this idea with 3 concrete issues. Issue number 1. How can we increase the sustainability of the food system through dietary changes? We know that what we eat impacts the environment and that the impact varies enormously across foods. We also know that most Finns do not comply with healthy eating recommendations. From an environmental and health point of view, it would therefore be desirable to reorient the food system away from animal products and towards more plant-based products. But how to achieve this? One option is to design effective incentive schemes, in its simplest form, taxes and subsidies, or possibly more elaborate measures such as individual carbon allowances, in order to modify consumer behaviors. But there are costs and benefits involved, And we know that behavioral changes are always difficult, so that the effectiveness of those incentive schemes is unknown. However, by combining detailed data on consumers' food purchases, microeconomic theory, and statistical methods, we are able to measure the extent of the substitutions among foods that are likely to take place as a result of those schemes. We have, for instance, shown that small taxes under 20% have very little effect in terms of sustainability outcomes, but raise important equity concerns. Issue number 2. On the supply side, how can we raise the sustainable competitiveness of the agri-food sector? There are several angles to this question, but one of them relates to the development of an enabling policy environment in a context where considerable amounts of resources are spent annually to support farmers, roughly 2 billion euros annually in Finland and 60 billion euros in the EU. Is this money well spent? And do we get our bang for the buck? We need to understand what policy measures work in raising the sustainability of farm production without compromising economic performance. And this can be achieved by rigorously evaluating the impacts of farm policies, whether ex ante or ex post. The difficulty in this area is the impossibility of establishing causal effects by setting up randomized controlled trials, as is done in many other areas of science, for instance in pharmaceutical science, to assess the efficacy of a new drug. But much progress has been made in recent years, in part due to new methods and an increased focus on experimental design, in part due to the greater availability of data. This has contributed to a so-called credibility revolution in empirical economics, which simply means that our research results have become much more robust and reliable. Issue number 3 relates to the operation of food markets and their international dimension. Where should our food come from to raise the sustainability of the system? Intuitively, local production is very appealing because it reduces transport while supporting the local economy. But, as often with food issue, it is more complicated than thought at first glance. For instance, transport only accounts for a small share of the total carbon footprint of food, 6% globally. Further, still globally, most of the population growth in the next few decades will take place in countries that are particularly constrained to increase their food production. Hence, international trade has a key role to play in ensuring food security for all, but this role is poorly understood. Part of my research aims at exploring this issue by joining insight from economics, which explains how markets work, and the natural sciences, which defines the planetary boundaries within which the economic system must operate. I hope that those 3 illustrative examples show you how food system economists such as myself can contribute to the sustainability transition in several ways. They can assess the true cost of the transition in a situation where trade-offs are almost inevitable. They can ensure that incentives are aligned with policy objectives, hence avoiding unintended behavioral effects. And they can identify sources of growth in resource efficiency, in particular in relation to comparative advantage and trade. To sum up, our food system requires profound transformations to become sustainable, but knowing what to do is difficult because of inherent complexities and trade-offs. However, contributions from food system economists such as myself should be combined to those of other disciplines to ensure success in the search for a sustainable future. Thank you for your attention.